Okay, good morning. So we're up to Siman Reish Tzadi Beis Zin Tfilas Mincha b'Shabbos. Interesting Siman. All the halachas of Shabbos Mincha. Says the Mechaber, the Mincha, says the Ramah, Omrim Ashrei Avolat Tzion. We say Ashrei Avolat Tzion, Va'anis Filasi, the pasuk of Anis Filasi. I'm quoting the Torah, and then continues the Mechaber, Moitzion Sefer Torah. For current Shleisha Anoshim, you call up 3 people. Asar Psukim. Miparsha Haba'ov, and you read 10 psukim from the coming week, etc. Fafidu chol yontov liyos b'Shabbos, karin b'parsha Haba'ov lo b'shal yontov. And even if it's a yontov, as we know, we lay in on the coming week, etc. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Omrim Ashrei Avolat Tzion. Mafsikin b'Kaddish Kedim Vanis Filasi. We say Kaddish after Avolat Tzion, and then we say Vanis Filasi. V'amiris Avolat Tzion b'Mincha hu b'mkeim Seder Kedusha D'chol. You see, we didn't say it in the morning. We didn't say Avolat Tzion in Shacharis like we normally do. Or v'Shabbos Shemarich and Harbe b'Shacharis u'Musaf hinichua ad Mincha. Chazal put it off till Mincha time that it shouldn't be overly long on Shabbos morning. Vanis Filasi. Why do we say that? Hu al pi hamedrash she'amad David lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ribono Shel Olam ein umazu ka'ovdei gidulim. The Jewish people are different. Shesheisim u'mishtakrim u'poichazim. Other nations, they drink and they get drunk and they behave in a reckless and a foolish manner. Va'anu loikein, and we're different. Afal pi she'achalnu v'shasinu, we've had lunch and we've eaten and we've drunk. Va'anis filasi, we come back to shul to daven mincha. But we don't say it on Yontif Mincha, given the ein korin bat Torah shu eis rotzen al yedei zeh. The dafka when we lein, it's an eis rotzen, and therefore it's an appropriate thing to say that on Nis Filasi. Umiu b'Shabbos nagul omrei af makom she'ein sefer Torah. But on Shabbos, even though for some reason that you couldn't lein because there's no sefer Torah, you still say the pasuk of Nis Filasi v'chein afilu b'yochid. Even a yochid would say it. So and therefore. If you look at note number 1, he says on Yom Kippur, which Shel Chol b'Shabbos, you don't say it. The Shulchan Aruch says in Tofresh Chaf Beis in Hilchos Yom Kippur, she'ein omrim vanis filasi, and the Mishnah Berurah there explains the time is because you don't eat. Lo yochlim on Yom Kippur, so it's not appropriate to say vanis filasi because the whole point is we contrast ourselves with others who eat and get drunk and whatever. V'chein afilu b'yochid. Okay. So we take out a Sefer Torah and we lay in on Shabbos Mincha. Says in the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton Gimel, Hu mitakonas Ezra. This is a takon of Ezra, as the Gemara says. If you look at note 2, why did he institute that we lay in on Shabbos Mincha? So we said Kosev Le'el in the Hagdama to Kuf Lamatei Shehu Mishum Yeshvei Kuranos. That's what the Gemara says. Ubia Shatzian Sham B'Shem Harosh. Very interesting. These are working people. They're street traders, they're buyers and they're selling and they're busy the whole week, and therefore they haven't got time to hear Kriyas HaTorah on Yom Sheni v'Chamishi, on Monday and Thursday. And therefore they made a special takana that Shabbos afternoon they'll get to hear Kriyas HaTorah. For 8 Kosev Sham b'Shem Ha'aruch, Yeshvei Kuranos heim anoshim shelo nichnosim lebeis hamedrash. Yeshvei Kuranos is more of a pejorative, more of a sort of a negative pejorative term. That they're layabouts, they're sitting in street corners schmoozing and whatever. And therefore, so therefore we call even those people in the Beis Medrash, say, no, come and hear something important, and we call them in for Kriyas HaTorah. Okay, so therefore Ezra was masakin for either of those 2 reasons, Kriyas HaTorah and Shabbos Mincha, either for people who are too busy working during the week, they didn't have time, or for people who are just Yoshev Korona, sitting on corners, not doing anything productive, they should come in and hear Kriyas HaTorah. Okay, Siv Cotton Dalet. So we call up 3 people, Shleisha Anoshim. Now why 3 people? So if you look at footnote 3, he says, Krim, can you call up more than 3 people on Shabbos Mincha? Let's say there are simchas, there's a chasna or whatever, kosev le'el, then in Kriyas HaTorah b'yemei sheni v'chamishi, shegam kasheyesh chasna oibal bris ein lahaisif. Like on a Monday and Thursday, over there we say even if there's a chassan or there's a person making a bris, you shouldn't be moisif aliyahs on a Monday, Thursday, and so too on a Shabbos Mincha. Over tama kosev sham shelo lebatles or amim melacha. Over there on Monday and Thursday, you want to get on with it for laying, for davening in the morning. People have got to go off to work. Over Shabbos she'ein shaykh tamzeh. Shabbos, people haven't got the work excuse. Kosev hamachas shekel shu kiven shedorshu ad samach chashecha. Why don't we be meisif aliyahs? Because the drosh is going to be samach lechashecha. Lerotzu chachamim latriach as atzibur beisavos aliyahs. It's already tircha the tzibur. You're going to be in shul for a long time. Just make sure there's 3 aliyahs and not more. The Prima Godim adds, "Sheish loma she'af shebeshabbos l'shayach hatam shel bittul melacha lo yichilku chacham beidin kriya zu ledin kriya shel yom chol." It's a low plug, and just like on Monday, Thursday, it's 3. So too, we're not Mosif. So too on Shabbos Mincha. V'eitam mishum shetzorach lechol suda shlishis ve'ein laharich, and therefore, you got shlal shudas to eat, and therefore you shouldn't be marich. Okay, continuing Sif Cotton Dalet, but Mincha ein omrim Kaddish ala bima. You don't say Kaddish after Kriyas HaTorah like we do in the morning. La'olam. V'hainu hainu ben Shabbos ben Tanis, whether it's a Shabbos or a Tanis. Rak lifnei ha'omud koidim tefillah Shemona Esrei. We do it just before Shemona Esrei when the Chazan is back at the omud. For koi nami ha-sefer Torah, and that Kaddish that he says before Shemona Esrei is going on the Sefer Torah that we learned from. Because if you do Kaddish straight away after Kriyas HaTorah at the Bima, imkain lefnei ha'omad lo yomru Kaddish, then it will turn out that you just put the Sefer Torah back and you come back to the Omud to say, and you just go into Shemona Esrei. And we need sort of a starting point. Ki ein bameh lahafsik bein HaKadeshim, because there's nothing to be mafsik between the Kadeshim. Bein HaKadeshim yahalu and pasuk echad lo have hefsik, and the yahalu is not really a hefsik, a sufficient hefsik. Va'af she'erim mizmah shem lo Hashem haaretz, ein zeh me'ikadin. That's more than is actually necessary. And really, the preference is to put Kaddish before Shemona Esrei. Why is that? He says in footnote 6, the time is Shemas HaKaddish Shemona Esrei Kosav HaLavush Shehu Kadei Sheyedu VaHatzibur Shegia HaShatz Lifnei Omud VeYaschilu Miyad Ach HaKaddish B'Tefillah Shemona Esrei Kulam Ke'echad B'Shaveh. And therefore everyone would say Shemona Esrei together after the Kaddish. That's the start, the trigger, that's the starting point. Mashen Kein B'Shachris Yesh Hefsek B'Miz Ashrei Ben Time. There's a big hefsek between, because you're saying Ashrei.
I always have this question, sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
Ashkenaz, say Ashrei afterwards. So you say Hallelujah and then Ashrei.
Yeah.
You still say Kaddish before. How does that work? I always have this question.
Yeah. We saw recently that if the in some shuls, if the Rav gives a drasha, then they say Ashrei afterwards. We're talking about during the
Here today, anyone Nusach Ashkenaz.
So why are they saying Ashrei?
Kaddish and then Hallelujah.
Yeah.
And then they say Ashrei.
Yeah.
Kaddish is still. I never understood.
Yeah. Ulafizah, Ulafizah, Kashein Sefer Torah b'Shabbos Mincha, Lo Yomru Rak Pam Echot Kaddish Acha Ashrei V'Olesien. So interestingly, if there's no Sefer Torah, a person's away, you're traveling, there's no Sefer Torah, then you only say one Kaddish. When do you do that? After Ashrei V'Olesien. So our Kriya Einena B'Shvil Yontav, because the Kriya is not for Yontav, the B'Mincha B'Yontav in Keren. Sorry, Mr. Line. Pasuk V'Nizvaz Yomru Of. If there's no Sefer Torah, what do? You say Ashrei Nevolat Tzion, and then you say Vanis Filosi, and then you say Kaddish. Kadesh lo yehefsik ben Kaddish and Tefillah. There shouldn't be any hefsik between Kaddish and Tefillah. Yeah. Okay. V'lo b'shel Yontov, to hakriya inena b'shel Yontov, to b'mincha b'Yontov ein korin. Okay, good. Sif base. Omrim sit koscha. So then, after you've said Shemona Esrei, you say sit koscha. And if you look at why do we say Sit Koscha on Shabbos? So if you look at the Mishnah Berurah, Sivkot involved, the Meisu Bo Yosef, Moshe, V'David. Because at that point on Shabbos Mincha, these 3 giants of Jewish history, the Meisu Bo, they died at that time, Yosef, Moshe, and David. And therefore, originally the minhag was not to have sort of droshes at that time. Ki Chacham Shemeis Kol HaMidrashos B'Teilim. When a Chacham passes away, you shouldn't. All the droshes are bottled. Bach herich lechiach shalom meis Moshe b'Shabbos rak be'erev Shabbos. The Moshe Rabbeinu didn't die actually at the time of Shabbos Mincha like we're suggesting, but rather he died in erev Shabbos. V'lo nignaz ad Shabbos b'Mincha b'shayta deis ratzon. But he was only buried 24 hours later at Mincha time on Shabbos. How can you do a kvura on Shabbos? Teretz is, he says in the footnote that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did the kvura. V'af she'en kovrin b'Shabbos kosav abach she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'atzma kavrei. And therefore that's not a concern. And therefore sit koscha siduk hadin, and we say siduk hadin at the time when either Moshe died, as well as Yosef and David, or when Yosef and David died and Moshe Rabbeinu was buried. V'yesh mefarshim to omrim Turning over the page. The Omrim Sit Koscha lahastik adin al Rishon shechozun gehenim b'motzei Shabbos. Another reason to say Sit Koscha that all the other neshamas are going back to Gehenna on Motzei Shabbos, and therefore we say Siduk Hadin for then. Okay, let's carry on the Mishnah Berurah. Where are we? Sorry, we're back in the Mechava. Back in the Mechava. Sif base. So Omrim Sit Koscha ve'imchal by Yom Sha'ilu Hayachal lo Omrim by Mincha Nefilas Apayim. If Shabbos would have been a weekday and it would have been a day where you don't say Tachanun, then Oin Omrim Sit Koscha. So that's the rule always. So when you say Sit Koscha on Shabbos, that if that was a weekday, you wouldn't say Tachanun, then you wouldn't say it. So if you look at the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Kotzen Zayin, By B'Mincha Pirush, Bein Sheyom HaShabbos Hu Rosh Chodesh, whether that Shabbos is Rosh Chodesh, Bein Sheyom Rishon HaShachar Rosh Chodesh, or the next day is Rosh Chodesh, yeah, like the Shabbos exactly, then you don't say Sit Koscha. V'im Kain, Ilu Hayachol Lo Yomrim B'Mincha Nefilas Payim, because it was the day before Rosh Chodesh, or Rosh Chodesh Shatnei itself, you wouldn't say Tachanun. Shekvachal B'Mixas Yom Shel Achrov, V'lochein Gam Ata Ein Omrim Sit Koscha. If you look at note 8, he says, or Bali Bris, Kosov Bris Mila, that if a person made a bris on that Shabbos, he quotes from Chaim Kanievsky, She'af shel acha bris einam omrim sit koscha, or k'mo she'einam omrim tachanun b'yom hachol af lacha bris. Interesting. So if a person made a bris on a Shabbos, just like on a weekday, he wouldn't say tachanun later that day at Mincha. Well, so too he doesn't say sit koscha on that Shabbos. Okay, v'noagu, and then this is now back to the Ramah. V'noagu she'loilik bo medrash bein Mincha l'ma'ariv. That the minhag is not to make a drasha between Mincha and Ma'ariv. Aval Omrim Pirkei Avos b'Kayetz v'Shir Amalas b'Chorev v'Chol Makom Lefi Min Haggai. Right? So, yeah, so people justifies what happens here with the Shalashudas, and many shuls have Shalashudas. But Lemaisa, many shuls have drasha as well. So how does that work? So Sifkot and Ches, v'Eina Issa, Ela Minhag Lizikaron Ba'alma. It's not an Issa to have a drasha between Mincha and Ma'ariv, and many shuls of course do. It's a Zikaron Ba'alma. Vatam Kanal b'Sifkot and Vav, like we said before about Moshe Rabbeinu and Yosef and David. For Davka shlo lilmod b'chavrusa, and Davka not learning b'chavrusa, al v'shnayim learning b'bateihem. People learn in their homes. K'moshe kosav b'yardeh siman shin dalad mem. Sifut ches in nosi shemes, that they shouldn't have public learning, but learning quietly somewhere in a home or wherever seems to be okay. Bein mincha l'mariv. That's when it's close to night. Therefore, the drasha should be before mincha, mamish like here. And if the drasha goes on till close to night, don't say perek oisher malas, because if you say Pirkei Avos, then it might spill over, or Birch Baruch Nafshi, then it might spill over that you might eat Shalashudas after when it's too late. Over any Rabbi Issa b'Shem Malbusha Yontov, Shera l'Rabbi Maharal mePrague, meKama Pa'omim, Shedarish b'Mincha Ma'ariv. The great Maharal in the 1600s in Prague, he would give the drasha between Mincha and Ma'ariv. So you clearly see that we've got Maiserav, that you don't have to hold back from giving a drasha between Mincha and Ma'ariv on Shabbos. Because otherwise, what's going to happen? People will shmooze. They shouldn't come to that. Okay, just two final things. Why do we taka say Pirkei Avos and Shir Amalas in the winter? So if you look at number 9, he says, interesting reason. V'atam la'miras Pirkei Avos kosav b'machzavitri mipnei sheloim dimimena yir shamayim v'derech eretz. It's good musa when we learn Pirkei Avos. Tam noisav kosav v'shibori haleket. Kiven shepeseach bo Mishnah Moshe kibul Torah misinai shemesaprim onu bezeh b'chvodah shel Moshe shenignas b'zman hazeh. It's the whole Pirkei Avos is a cover to Moshe Rabbeinu, because we start off the whole of Pirkei Avos that Moshe kibul Torah misinai, and therefore since Moshe Rabbeinu died on Shabbos Mincha time, or was buried Shabbos Mincha time, or b'kachti lo menucha tova, that we're making reference to Moshe Rabbeinu by talking about Pirkei Avos. I never heard of that reason before. Baruch Chaim, he quotes another reason, Kosav Oitam, Shekivin Sheshah Zois, whose man Tanugus Libnei Adam, people are indulging, they're eating, etc. Tiknu Lahem Loima Divrei Musa V'Yiras Hashem Lahoshiv Esleiv Adam Lavedis Haber Yisbarach. That to refocus a person that's away from all the Tanugim of Shabbos. So that's Pirkei Avos. What about Baruch Nafshi? So he says, Vatam Lamir Shir Amalas, the reason why we say the 15 Shir Amalas, Kosav B'Levush, Shu Al Pi Divrei Gemara, is quoting the Gemara in Sukkah, Alidei David Omram, that he made the water go back up because the world was going to flood, and with each Shamalis it came up another 1,000 amas. Therefore it sort of sustained the world in Maisa Bereshis. We say Baruch Nafshi before the Shamalis. We say it from the Shabbos of Pashas Bereshis. It's the first Shabbos after Sukkot, but really it's actually Shabbos Bereshis. That's the time, and therefore the whole thing is talking about creation. They instituted that from that moment on. We start saying it throughout the winter to remember the creation and Bereshis generally. Okay, so that is Shabbos Mincha. Mr. Hashem, next we'll talk about Ma'ariv and Motzei Shabbos.